Have you ever wondered, someone needs to step up here and no one is? Well, maybe this is the exact opportunity that has presented itself just for you to give you the opportunity to showcase what you can do. Welcome to Crossroads and Catalyst, the podcast with Shenita B. I am your host. This is where we discuss the thoughtful, wise, and strategic perspective at a crossroads can be the catalyst for change. So I'm wondering, have you presented yourself as the leader, even though you don't have the title? Today's episode is about that exact thing. We want to get into how to take charge without having the title and the authority that is applicable to a particular position. Many of us have been in those scenarios. We're waiting for someone to get things done, to move things ahead, and nobody, absolutely no one, wants to be the one to be accountable nor responsible for a particular thing. It's a sad state of affairs sometimes, but that's just really kind of how it is. And a number of institutions, and I think most of us would be quite shocked if we realized how often it was occurring. But this presents an opportunity for you to again demonstrate what you already know that you've been doing, leading. And leading, again, is not simply about a title. It's really more about influence. And I'm sure that there are already people around you who have been following you because you have influence, because you've already demonstrated that you have the competencies and the skills to get the job done. You just don't have the title. So, what is it that's holding you back? Are you hesitant? Are you concerned that you might step on people's toes? Yeah, those are legitimate concerns, definitely, especially if you're able to discern that the environment in which you're operating is a little bit uncomfortable, maybe a little awkward, because again, you might have a leader who's not really leading, they're just managing, they're just checking boxes, which is not helpful. And there's a place for that, but maybe in the situation where you're finding yourself, it's just not practical and nor is it helpful. So, how do you take a situation like that and you turn it around? Well, first, you just really step up and do what you already have been doing. If people have already been turning to you and engaging you, asking your thoughts and opinions, or they've just listened intently to some of the things that you've presented, you already have the clout that's needed to get the job done. You just have to make sure that you continue down that track so that you can gain the additional insight and the notice of others around you. Because that's really where it's going to be helpful to you, especially if you're trying to stick around at the organization where you're currently working. And I just want us to be clear when we're talking about taking charge in a scenario where we don't have the title nor the actual or the how about the explicit authority that goes along with that position, this is not a long-term fix. Okay. You do not want to take on additional responsibilities long term because what will happen is that will be attached to you and it will become your permanent job. And the goal is not to take on these things long term. The goal is to use these things to help to uplift and progress your career, but to also provide value to the organization. So it can definitely turn out to be a win-win. You just want to exercise some discernment as you're proceeding with this because you don't want this to turn out to be a permanent fixture to your regular job duties. You want to use this as a catapult to get you to the next place. And I can tell you, uh, I think a lot of people have experienced this. I definitely have experienced this where I've had the opportunity to lead, even though I didn't have the actual leadership title nor the authority that goes along with it. And because influence is a major part of that, I've been able to ingratiate myself with a number of my colleagues over the years because I was able to demonstrate to them that I did have the competencies, I did have the skills, I did have the good ideas, but I also had the ability to connect with them and to listen to their feedback because it wasn't just about me. It wasn't about what I could do. It was about what we collectively could do. But because I had the ability to take some of what they had to offer and synthesize it and present it in a way that made it effective, I suppose, to those who were the listeners, to those who were receiving that presentation, it worked. And so I gained credibility with my colleagues and my team members for that very thing. And I can tell you, it's one of those, it definitely is a work in progress. And you really never know who is listening and how they perceive. You don't know who's watching and what their takeaways are. I can recall uh, this was a number of years ago where a meeting was called together to discuss reassessment of some pricing. And there were a number of people on this call, and the question was posed, okay, well, who is willing to take on this project? And it was quiet, and it was quiet and uncomfortable silence. You could tell that nobody really wanted to be involved in this because of what it might require. So finally, I jumped in and I said, okay, well, I'll do it. And pretty much at the same time, another gentleman on another team, he offered to do the same. Well, it was definitely going to require more than one or two people to work on this project. So there ended up being about three of us working together. And each of us we broke up between ourselves what we were going to do. And it worked out great. We presented our findings and we went on about our business. Well, sometime later, I applied for a job in a different department at the same organization. And lo and behold, the gentleman with whom I had worked on this project, he was a part of this team. Now, while he wasn't the leader in that department, because of his interaction with me, my interaction with him, his takeaway was that I would be a perfect person to fill the role that was open. And I didn't know that he had given a good referral at the time. I later found out about it, but all that to say is people are watching and you make an impression, whether that's to the good or to the bad. If you always are putting your best foot forward and you're willing to be vulnerable and take the lead, people will notice and it will pay off. And you might not always see it, but I had the opportunity to see that. And I'm so grateful. And this gentleman turned out to be one of my best friends while I was working there. So it worked out really well for me. And it can work out really well for you, but you have to be willing to step out and do that thing that it might be uncomfortable at first. But one of the things that you want to remember is that you have to get past the discomfort of doing things. And that's a great segue into, well, maybe I'm uncomfortable doing that thing, stepping out and taking charge because I might step on someone's toes or someone might get offended. Well, there's always that possibility. Anytime you're working on a team, there is the possibility that friction is going to occur. And especially if there is already a leader designated for that purpose and they're not actually taking the appropriate action that they need in order to get things done. So go forward recognizing that that's a possibility, but prepare yourself for how you will respond to it. Because I can tell you that one of the philosophies that I live by, especially in the workplace, is it is easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. If you know that something needs to be done, and this is not something that requires explicit authority like signing checks or binding an organization to a particular thing, exercise discretion and discernment and make a decision and deal with it and be prepared to provide your justification for why you did A, B, or C. Completely up to you, but be willing to take the risk because really that's a skill that a leader should definitely have is risk taking. You have to be willing again to be vulnerable and to take risks. And why wouldn't you do that if it will help you in the long run to get to the position where you want to be? So then what next? Well, okay, so then what next? Well, there are plenty of scenarios that you can find yourself in. And I think one of the reasons why it's so important to get feedback from your colleagues and maybe even your boss, if you have a good working relationship with them, is to understand their perspective and some of the good feedback, especially if they've given you good feedback on the things that the skills that you possess that have been valuable and very meaningful, not only to the organization, but to them as people as they're continuing to grow their career because we're all looking to continually grow. If you want to be better, you know that you have to continue to grow. So the feedback is going to be extremely important. And I can recall working years ago, I've always worked with a number of departments because I've worked at pretty much large organizations my entire career. So I wasn't just simply working with the people in the office next to me or in the cubicle next to me. These were people across the department, across the organization in different departments. And I was working with one lady in a department, and we found out that a position was becoming available in our business office. And she contacted me and she said, Shanita, you should apply for this job because you would be perfect for this job. They would listen to you. You understand processes. You would be able to help them to understand what it is that we need. And she just had a whole list of things as to why I should apply for this job and why I would be an excellent candidate for the position. Now, it wasn't necessarily a position that I was interested in, but it meant so much to me, and I found it to be so satisfying that she saw in me the skills, the very thing that was needed to help turn a department around. Believe me when I tell you, you work with people who see those exact same things and better in you. So don't discount it, don't dismiss it, and marginalize it. Listen to what others are telling you because sometimes we are so comfortable working in the shadows that when someone shines the light on us, we run scared and we become uncomfortable. It's time to move past that because if you want to progress further than where you are today, it's going to require you to step into the light and operate and showcase the very skills that you possess that have gotten you to where you are today. You just need to apply them a little more intentionally and specifically to get you to the next step. So take that to heart because it's important. You are ready to move, so take it seriously. So when you report to work, I want you to look at a scenario where you can take the lead without necessarily being in charge. And I know that there's a situation that has already occurred. If a project is available, apply yourself to it. And if there isn't a project that's available, go talk to your boss and ask them, hey, is there anything that's coming up that I could participate in and potentially lead a task force? Especially if you're in a large organization, because there are always things that are going on that require additional resources. So take the leap and do that. Make yourself available to that because I think that you're going to find it very helpful. And again, go back and revisit some of the feedback that you've received from colleagues, team members, your boss even, and see how you can make those scenarios, how you can make those skills better. Okay? People believe in you and your talents. You should start to believe in yourself as well. And the last thing I would say is think about one way that you can lead this week. And it doesn't even have to be at work because the things that we talk about, while we're talking about them in a professional context, these are things that transcend the workplace. They transcend work hours. These are things that you will need in your daily life. Well, that is a wrap for today's episode, and I appreciate that you have taken the time to listen. If you have a story or some feedback that you would like to provide, would love to hear about it. Send an email to me at theshanita.brown@gmail.com. You can also follow me at theshanita.brown on Instagram. And if you happen to be watching this on YouTube, give me a like and a subscribe and stay tuned for future episodes. Remember, crossroads reveal who you are. Catalysts shape who you become. Every decision matters, so make it count. I'll talk to you next week.